Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining our webinar today. My name is Jerome Uester and welcome to the first webinar of a set of 3 project webcast series hosted by pCubed. Today we're going to be looking at sharing and collaborating with Project 2013. We will touch a little bit on Microsoft Project by itself and move on to Project Online and collaborating in a more formal environment. There are a couple of things you can do as we go through the webinar. We have a Q&A box where you can log your questions, and I will take some breaks as we go through to answer your questions. We have 60 minutes scheduled, so I will attempt to canter through at a brisk pace, and we can go back and delve into any areas that attendees are particularly interested in at the end. But before we get started, let's do a quick introduction. As I said earlier, my name is Jerome Uester. I've been playing and working with the Microsoft Project Server platform for just over 4 years now. I work out of the UK for an organization called pCubed. Most of that time has been spent on various client sites, either leading or supporting the delivery of pragmatic business solutions, including but not limited to SharePoint, Project Server, and pCubed Delivery Hub solutions to pCube's clients, ultimately helping them work towards effectively initiating, selecting, planning, and delivering their projects on time and within budget. I also occasionally blog about project-related things at strategicsolutions.corner.blogspot. I wanted to tell you a little bit about pCubed as well. We have 22 offices globally throughout North America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. We recently merged with MIGSO, the leading European project management consultancy. We have a team of over 20 EPM experts based in the UK, with access to a further 30 globally. We have a global blue chip client base. We serve 50% of the Fortune 500, and I think most significantly, we've been a Microsoft Gold partner for just under 12 years now, delivering some of the largest EPM solutions globally. We have a gold in portfolio and projects and a silver in collaboration. We delivered circa around 1,000 EPM solutions to date, including some of the highest profile and largest implementations across North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. This has been for clients such as Nationwide Building Society, BP, Transport for London, Harman International, and so forth. So this is the description you would have signed up for today's webcast, just to make sure you're at the right place. I've taken the liberty of highlighting the important bits in maroon, and if you're colorblind, I'm referring to the text in bold. So firstly, Project Server 2013 supports the overall themes of Microsoft's Office 365 offering by having all of its collaboration options baked into the product. So that's one of the things we're really going to be looking at today. How do we share and collaborate? If you think about project and portfolio management, a lot of what we need to do isn't just about creating a pretty plan. We also need to share that information and collaborate on those plans with other people. I'm also going to try and clear up some of the confusion that exists around the different versions of Project that we have today, which are Project, Project Pro for Office 365, then there's Project Professional, Project Online, and Project Server. So we will go through all of those and try to clear up what I tend to call the SKU soup. That is SKU for Stock Keeping Unit. So, what shall we do today? We're going to have a look, and we're going to be covering several different things. We're going to be covering Office 365, Project Online, the SKU soup, and then we'll be looking at some of the sharing and collaborating features within MS Project and Project Online. So over here we have a slide that says how to manage projects, the simple version. We're going to be looking at what does project management really look like. Now, I know you're saying, I know what project management looks like, Jerome, and I know you do, but we're going to have a common definition just for today, because there's no point in looking at all of these features and technologies if we don't hang them off of a business problem. And today's business problem is, of course, as you know, project management. So the simple way to look at project management is, number one, you have a set of processes like goals and tasks. Number two, you have a set of reports so you know what's going on. Number three, you're constantly connecting people to the project and providing a way for them to collaborate, which is of course our focus for today. And then there's number four, which is evolve and mature the way you manage projects. Now, changing over time how you evolve your project management, you could almost say that 1, 2, and 3 is how you manage the projects, and 4 is how you change how you manage those projects. And you want Project Online to be able to help you do all of the above. So, what is Office 365? Well, we need to know what we want to achieve, and we need to know how Project Online can help us do that. And to do that, we need to have an awareness of what Office 365 is and what products we might buy. As a general rule, we also need to have an awareness of what Microsoft are doing with their solutions as a business. Now, Office 365 came about 3 years ago, and it was officially launched in 2011, I believe. It started off as a core set of products hosted on the web, including Exchange, SharePoint, and we also had the ability to buy Office Professional online and utilize the functionality of something called Office Web Apps. Web apps are browser applications of the traditional desktop applications that you would install on your Windows machine. Also, Microsoft saw the licensing of Office Professional and the ability to buy and download applications on up to 5 machines per user as a key component of Office 365. This is done with a technology called Click to Run that allows you to deploy Office on all of your machines and keep them up to date exceedingly quickly and easily. Those are the core components in Office 365. However, we then have some peripheral applications that sit in the cloud, one of which is Project Online, which is really Project Server in the cloud, in the same way that SharePoint Online is SharePoint Server in the cloud. Then there is Lync Online and Yammer, as well as a host of other applications that make up Office 365. So hopefully that clears up a little bit of the Office 365 mystery. Looking at Office Web Apps, again, the view of Office Web Apps is that you're able to access, view, and edit from anywhere on any device, i.e. a tablet, a PC, or a phone. And it allows us in some of those instances for multiple people to edit the same document at the same time. For example, today I've been working on a Project Server 2013 site. It's on premise, but that doesn't really matter. It could just as well have been Project Online for the purpose of this discussion. We've been doing some documentation, and we stored a Word document on our SharePoint 2013 environment, and both of us edited the Word document at once through the browser. So that's 2 independent people accessing the same document, editing it, saving it, and using Word Web App to do so. And I have to say it worked exceedingly well. We happen to be in the same office working for the same company, but we could just as well have been in different time zones and countries for all intents and purposes. So that gives you an overview of Office Web Apps. Moving on to the SKU, the SKU soup. Now let's try and shed some light on project and the SKU soup. As can be seen on the slide, we have 3 headings. We have role, We have Office 365 service offering, which is the subscription service. And then we have the equivalent on-premise offering, which is a perpetual license, i.e., you buy it once and then you have it forever. So our first role is a project manager or a business decision maker. That type of person would buy Project Online in the Office 365 world, which, as we said earlier, is Project Server 2013 in the cloud, hosted in a data center by Microsoft. The equivalent on-premise offering is Project Web App, which is used to access your Project Server solution. Your next role is for users who fall into the more advanced schedulers or planners category. And that's typically kind of your PMO, and PMO administrators may typically also use it for implementing organization-wide calendars by taking advantage of the calendar functionality in the tool. Our Office 365 offering then is Project Online with Project Pro. This is essentially a combination of the top Project Online subscription, and then we buy Project Pro for Office 365. And Project Pro for Office 365 is a subscription service for Microsoft Project Professional 2013. The equivalent on-premise solution is obviously then Microsoft Project Professional 2013. They're the same product, one you're purchasing and this one essentially you're renting. The next role is focused on typical team members. They can take advantage of the Project Online companion offering for team members called Project Lite, which makes Project Web App accessible to team members but with cut down functionality. It's really for the masses of people who need to update things like risks and issues, manage their tasks, collaborate and submit timesheets. They wouldn't really be expected to run reports or create or update projects and those sorts of things. On-premise users can then also take advantage of this cheaper offering by Microsoft. The last role I wanted to discuss is about standalone project managers. If you're working on your own and you're not collaborating with anybody, then you would likely buy Project Pro for Office 365 or Project Standard and install that on your desktop or Project Professional 2013. So that wraps that up. Moving on to the new project. So first, let's talk about what's new in Project. There have been a few changes in the client, and a lot of people have asked, what's the difference between 2010 and 2013, or Project Pro as it's otherwise called? I'll be taking you through some of the key points and dipping into and out of demonstrations. So let's look at the history of Project first. There have been some changes since the 2010 version. Many people may not know this, but Project was one of the first applications Microsoft released at a desktop level. It was actually released in 1987, specifically to do project scheduling and creating Gantt charts. There was no resource management or enterprise reporting. It was really just about planning and scheduling your individual project-based work. That changed in 1999 when Microsoft looked at the market and they realized there were many more people involved in a project than just project managers. There were functional managers and resource managers who needed to understand what people were doing and what work was being performed across the organization. There were senior executives who needed a portfolio view of all projects going on. So what Microsoft did is on the Project 2000 CD, they included a product called Project Central. It was free and it came with Microsoft Project. It was a way you could publish all of your projects to a central dashboard and see them all in one place. Then things changed again in 2002, so around about, yeah, with the release of Project Server. This not only provided a central repository for all your projects and a central resource pool for all of your people, but you also had a SharePoint library all of a sudden for tracking your issues, your risks, your documents, and any deliverables, really. And it was all reportable against. Microsoft made yet another move in the marketplace in 2006 with the acquisition of a product called Portfolio Server. With this allowed us to do top-down portfolio management and bottoms-up project management at the same time. This brought together with SharePoint 2010 provided us with a consolidated platform to do our project, portfolio, and resource management. Now followed up with the 2013 version, which is what we're focused on today. And there are some significant differences in the 2013 client to the 2010. And going all the way back to 2002, we're going to be touching on what some of those are, and especially on the big ones, which is the ability to access it through the cloud. So, what is new in 2013? Moving forward, I want to talk about really what's new, as I'm assuming most people are somewhat familiar with Project. What's new begins at the desktop level. When you open up the application, the first thing you're going to see is something called the task path analysis, which gives you the ability to quickly highlight and understand predecessors and successors throughout every project as you work through your WBS. This is going to help you really understand the impact one change has on the rest of your schedule. It also has presence awareness. So if you're using Lync or Lync Server, you can actually see if the resources on your project are online. You can IM them, start an audio call, or even start a video chat with them right through Project. One of the big changes and a big request from users has been the ability to do better reporting. It's always been a great scheduling tool, but it's always been very difficult at the same time to extract information from it. Fortunately, it now has built-in dashboards. They have also made it easier to get started, with hundreds of templates available, and finally, it gives you the ability to link into its app market on Office Online and download applications or apps, as they're known as these days. Right, demo. Okay, so where we are now is the desktop client. Remember, I said we're going to start in Project Professional, and when you open up Project, one of the first things you'll see is a friendly user help screen that says, hey, what is it you want to do? Do you want to start a new project over here? Do you want to start a new project from an existing project? Do I want to import an Excel workbook with a list of tasks and create a project schedule from it over here? I can also create a project from a SharePoint task list. So we can go both ways with SharePoint, really. In this case, we can pull a SharePoint task list in. Or alternatively, I can make use of a plethora of templates out there. Look at all of these, and there's many more. I can go by category if needed. In this instance, however, I'm just going to choose to open up an existing project. And I'll open up my simple project plan. So you can see over here, built directly into project is the ability to see somebody's link status. When I mouse over, I can see whether they're free or whether they're not free. For the purpose of this demonstration, I've switched my link off. so not to get messages while doing the demo. However, I'd be able to see whether their status is red, they're in a meeting, or they're busy, or the yellow, so that they're away from their desk. So in other words, very useful for collaborating on projects. Now how did I set that up? If you navigate to the resource sheet, so I go to Gantt chart, and I say resource sheet, and I select a user and I click information. So if we say we want to take Ian Radcliffe or even David Myers, I can put the email into the email field here in the dialog box, and if that user is set up on your Lync system and you are logged into Lync, then that user's status will appear. I thought I would show you a couple of other things while we're in the application. Let's say that there were some tasks that I no longer wanted included in my plan. I can choose to make them inactive. So if I go to my Enterprise Gantt chart again, you can see I have tasks here. I could highlight several of them, and I could actually choose inactive. This actually grays out the tasks for me, and they will no longer affect the schedule of this project. What that does is it doesn't affect my project schedule at all. It keeps them visible, but they no longer impact anything. The other thing I wanted to do was to have a look at something called the Team Planner. So if I navigate back to my Gantt chart here, and I have Team Planner, over here I can see all of my team members assigned to my project or my program in an almost Gantt chart-like view. I can see what they are working on, and I can drag and drop the tasks around to assign it to someone who perhaps has more bandwidth. So if I went here, I can say, Charlie's a bit busy with that. I can give this to Diogo instead. And I can see here, for instance, also that my EPM consultant is red because he has multiple tasks assigned to him over the same amount of time, and it's telling me he's over allocated. So the Team Planner is really exactly that. It helps you plan what your team is doing. That's what these tools provide. They can save you time and provide you visibility into possible problem areas. Or what if I wanted to look at a project-based dashboard right now? What if I wanted to see exactly what is going on this project at this very moment? If I had to go to the Report tab over here, you can see I have a dashboard button. And within Dashboard, Microsoft has built 5 pre-built reports. You can also see that we have access to other reports here, such as resource reports. We have cost reports, and in total there are about, I think, 20 pre-built reports that have now come with the application. What I can do is I can select one, which in this case I wanted to look at the project overview dashboard. My screen is going to change, and now I can get an overview of where I am on this project. I can see I'm 4% complete. I can also see any late tasks that I may have. Another great thing is if I click on the table over here, it opens up a pivot table, and I can use that to either add to or modify my report. I can add a priority or perhaps work complete. In the design tab, I can modify and change the format of my report, the colors, the styles, the layouts, and then finally I can also copy my report, and I can move it into Outlook or into PowerPoint, with relative ease. Then finally, if I click on the Gantt chart, so if we go back here and timeline, I can go and I can copy my timeline into the Format tab and take it into my email, and I can send it to my boss. So if I'm on the Format tab and I just go copy timeline, I say I want to copy my timeline for email, click on that, I go over here, I just say new email. I can just simply paste that right in there. I can format it around, I can move it a little bit bigger if I like. I can add additional colors. So really powerful stuff for sharing and for collaborating. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save this project and I'm going to save it to my OneDrive. Now what I can do at this point is I'd go and I'd sign in. In this instance, let's just say I'm going to use my Gmail account, not my organizational pCubed account, and it'll go and it'll look for it and it'll save it up to my OneDrive. And after I've done that, I now have the ability to collaborate and share this file with colleagues, with external clients. However I see fit, I can allow people to either kind of read these documents, or I can give them the ability to read and modify. So yeah, very powerful. If we move back to our presentation, the next thing I'd like to demonstrate is syncing to a SharePoint list. There's a lot we can do here, and some of it I'm not going to demo, but we can take our activities and we can sync them to a SharePoint site. Effectively, we can create a new SharePoint site to do that. That then creates new tasks in a SharePoint site, or we can sync with an existing SharePoint site. That then gives us the ability to have a timeline within the SharePoint site, which is great, and we then have the ability to also map to specific users. So on my plan, if I go back to Project Professional over here, and instead of saving to my OneDrive, I'm going to save to a SharePoint list. Sync with a SharePoint list, and I can choose, do I want to sync with a new SharePoint site, or do I want to kind of do it with a existing or a new one? In this instance, I'm just going to do it with a new one. So I have my project name, and then I'll also put in my site address. So I'll paste that in there, and then I'll say save. So at this point, what it's doing is it's syncing to the SharePoint server, and this may take a little bit of a while. So what I'll do is I'll take you straight to the Office 365 SharePoint site where I've saved this. And if I go in the spanner or the cog and I click Site Contents, I can see a list of all projects that are being saved over here. So we're going to just wait on that, and it'll be appearing momentarily. Okay, so if we scroll a little bit down now, and I do a search for my simple project plan, I can see one's been created over here. And this is the project site that it's now gone and it's created for me. Now we have our own project site for this specific plan. And from a project perspective, if I click on the task list, you can see that it's replicated the plan's tasks in SharePoint. And what this does is it gives team members and myself the ability to update these online. So for instance, if I was just a standard team member and I don't have access to Project Professional, a project manager might, for instance, go and sync his plan with his task list, and I can go and I can see my tasks that have been assigned to me. Over here, I can see I have task 1, and that was actually due on Tuesday. And I can go and I can complete that, and I can update it, and that'll sync back to his plan. So you can see how all of a sudden, this becomes just another tool in our collaboration arsenal. So what else you can do? We can edit the list, and we can add in additional tasks if we wanted to. I can also stop editing this list, and that activity would become a task on the schedule. I can also update the schedule from here, and as I said, and I can mark those tasks as done. I can just go and I can click up finish that one. I happen to do Sarah's as well, so really, really useful. Unfortunately, I'm not signed into Link, as I said earlier, but in theory, I would be able to see if these users were online or away if I was signed into Link. Okay, so we've covered some of the light activities, and now we can begin to move to a more formal collaboration within Project Online. SharePoint Server 2013 and Project Online provide the ability to incrementally increase the project management capabilities and features for a project as the project grows and slowly becomes more complex. Projects can start as either a project plan or a simple SharePoint task list and gradually grow into a full enterprise project using all of the features available in Project Online as your project management requirements increase for a particular project. Or alternatively, a project can be created in Project Online, and this in turn will provision you a pre-built template schedule, a pre-built predefined project site, governance workflows, all as defined as the PMO. Our focus for today is collaborations. So I'm not going to be touching on those, but you can go and view some of the other webinars which will also be available for download, particularly on portfolio optimization and resource management. Right. While I'm mainly focusing on the collaborative aspects today, I did briefly want to touch on the functional overview of the solution, just to give you an idea of what it's capable of. Project Online helps automate and can take you through the entire project and portfolio management lifecycle. It'll take you from creating new requests to revising them through a business case to doing formal project portfolio prioritization and optimization to make the right kind of business decisions. It gives you capacity planning capabilities with the ability to build resource plans, so you can say, I need 4 developers, 1 project manager, 1 business analyst over this period of time. Now let's look at capacity and demand and do my allocation based on roles, while at the same time looking at the actual resources we have within our organization. At the same time, we can also measure effectiveness. We can begin tracking what are people working on what projects, how are they performing, do I have a red, a yellow or a green on my schedule, how do I collaborate on that information in a central repository using a central set of tools. Thus the Microsoft PPM platform, which includes Project Online and Project Pro, is really designed to manage the whole project lifecycle. Right, so as I mentioned, Project Server first came out in 2002, then 2007, then 2010, and now 2013. And what Microsoft have done with the 2013 product is release Project Online, which is the cloud-based subscription-based service. You can subscribe to Microsoft Project Server Online and connect to it either through a web-based browser online or through your Project Pro application on your desktop, depending on what you want to do. Microsoft uses the term project and portfolio management to refer to a group of components that includes Microsoft Project Professional, Project Server, and Project Web App. It's also used for Project Online combined with Project Pro, which, as you know, is its Office 365 cloud offering. Both of these offerings are integrated into SharePoint Server 2013, delivering a common collaboration and information platform available to everyone involved in a project. This combination provides a proven, centralized solution for successful enterprise project-wide portfolio management. It offers a flexible end-to-end PPM platform used by organizations across a broad variety of industries to automate primary PPM processes, as can be seen on the slide, particularly in the previous one. Right, so let's talk about what Project Online is. Project Online is different from Project Server in that it delivers all of your information online instead of from your servers. The second thing is that it follows a subscription-based model, whereas with traditional licensing you would buy SharePoint Server. Project Server, Project Professional, SharePoint, and Project Server CALs. Then you'd also have to go and you'd have to install all of it. Project Online replaces how you purchase that information on a per user per month basis. So if I had 50 users collaborating, I would have 50 subscriptions. And I can also move that up and down depending on what my needs are. In terms of setup, deploying Project Online is actually very similar to deploying Project Server. It still takes business planning, it still takes configuration and configuration management. The good thing is that Microsoft is managing the IT infrastructure, so you don't have to worry about installing it to your server or keeping it up to date. From a results perspective, you're going to be seeing a lot of time savings and cost savings. Time savings mainly on the not having to rely on the IT group to keep information up to date or implementing the new updates. It's also going to provide you with the cost savings, and that's mainly from the monthly subscription, because that can be very low depending on the amount of users you have, bringing down the cost of moving to a PPM solution. Yeah. Right, so a little bit about the business challenges. Project Online and Project Server is really designed to address several business challenges. The first one of those challenges is that you've got different people working in different places on different projects, often in a matrix organization where they have to understand the context behind what they are doing. People also often want to work on different devices because often they are traveling on planes or trains and they need the ability to quickly access information wherever they are. The second key challenge is managing infrastructure costs. More and more applications are moving to the cloud, right? And we're finding that this is a big requirement for many organizations, so that they don't have to pay upfront costs for infrastructure to implement applications. The third key business challenge is that Project Online is designed for aligning with business priorities, right? So all the things that a good portfolio management application can help you with. Best practice portfolio selection techniques provide a handshake between portfolio optimization. That is, the alignment with business priorities and maximizing ROI, and then resource utilization, which is the understanding of resource capability and availability. Now, together, these techniques help PMOs recommend not only which projects to undertake, but also to forecast their delivery. The solution supports a logical rather than a subjective approach to portfolio selection and provides a structured process for measuring the alignment of spending with strategy by maximizing resource utilization. And finally, if we look at the last one over here, organizations want visibility and control over what people are working on. The key resource that organizations have a limited amount of is people. And if you don't know what your people are working on or what projects are coming up, how are you going to make the right kinds of business decisions? Unified project and portfolio management. When we talk about Project Server or Project Online, it's really about the roles and the collaboration. What do executives want? Do they need the dashboards and reports? They need the BI to make the right decisions. Managers need reporting. They need to know what their people are working on over a period of time so that they can gauge that, access it, and report on it. Project managers, they track schedules, status updates, action items, as well as risks, issues, and so forth. They need to quickly and easily create these status updates as well. And finally, you have the team members over here. These are the ones that want to get the updates, they want to collaborate in real time. So when we start talking about it, it's also about getting access on different devices. And we can't assume that people just use one device anymore. Likewise, they could also be in a variety of different locations. How can I get access, to my information to make the right business decision? Maybe I'm at home, watching TV. Maybe I'm at the airport checking on my portfolio, or I need to kind of contact a project manager or a team member before I take off. That's really what Project Online is designed to do, to provide visibility into the platform. Okay, so let's take a look at what your typical project server devices are. If you see here, you have your traditional project server on-premise devices. In the middle, you have a SharePoint farm deployed with Project Server, and we would access that SharePoint farm typically using desktops or laptops. And this is really what the world looked like from a Project Server perspective until Project Server 2013 came out. And over here we have Project Online. So what does the world look like now? Well, here is our typical Project Online devices. And I say typical because people will still use laptops and desktops, because in a work environment these remain our primary devices. However, we are starting to see many more people utilize their tablets, from a Nexus 7 to a Surface Pro to an iPad. And this will certainly become more prevalent with the blurring of lines or merging of the two devices, specifically with something like the Surface Pro, which is essentially both a laptop and a tablet. In terms of phones, these become very powerful in Project Online when you add Exchange integration and start accessing your tasks via your calendar. All of a sudden I can go and I can say, or pick up my tasks, and I can complete them, and I can just tap a button on my mobile device, and that feeds back to somebody's plan. So much easier. But ultimately, certain device formats will be better suited for certain tasks. I'm obviously not going to be using my mobile phone to do detailed project planning. Okay, so we're going to move on to the project site demo now. So yeah, we are back on my simple project plan project site. Let's talk a little bit about the end user, the people who are doing the work every day. Typically, you would go and update my timesheet or perhaps a task sheet. But what Microsoft really realized is that there are different ways that people like to collaborate. And walking around with an array of different devices. Wouldn't it be great to have one way to feed all of this information to them so that they can quickly and easily access it? So what they did do is they developed something called the newsfeed. So let's navigate to the newsfeed right now. So if I click over here, and so I'm in the newsfeed right now, and you can see I have subscribed to follow different people, different documents, different SharePoint sites, as well as tagging different sites and information. You will also see that I'm tracking different projects. Most people these days are used to some form of a social media platform, and this provides that same capability but in a secure way. So if I wanted to see the different documents that I'm following, I could go and I can click on the number, And what it'll do is it'll take me to a page that'll show me the documents I'm following or collaborating on. So over here we can see that. And then typically this would also show me other possible documents that I may find interesting or may be related. Now this is just a demo site, so it's not really active, and it doesn't have a vast amount of information on it. But if you want a live environment, very likely that it will start picking things up and start showing you, relevant information. And for those of you that have used things like Dropbox or SkyDrive or perhaps Google Drive, there is now an enterprise equivalent called OneDrive for Business, which allows you to sync with SharePoint. And it's also a great way to connect to your projects. I could just go, and I could go and into my OneDrive. Or maybe I'm tracking a few project managers. So if I had to go back, and I want to see what are these people doing. I can start to track people. I can view the people that I'm following, and what it'll do is it'll present me with a stream of conversation, almost like a version of LinkedIn or perhaps Facebook. So over here, we go and click on the three. So we can see I'm following Bonnie, Pavel, Pedro. And I know Gareth, he works in a very similar kind of role to me, so I might follow Gareth as well. Or alternatively, I could go to my task list. And what this does is this is actually really powerful. What it does is it pulls together and aggregates all of my project work across all of the projects that I'm working on, as well as my personal work and non-project activities, into what is basically just one big task list. The process we most use in project management is very often the task list. If I click on the project name, over here, then it would allow me to drill into the project team site. But I'm not going to do that right now because I want to stick to this page. But we will talk a little bit more about that later. So, another thing I can do from here is click on tasks that I have completed, as I demonstrated earlier. I could click there and I could send that back to the project manager for approval and acceptance. So you can see it does follow the project governance lifecycle as well. News feeds are really great because they let me prioritize my work by letting me add important tasks to my timeline. And I can kind of start prioritizing things, or I can look at work I've recently completed as well. I can synchronize my tasks with my Outlook, and I can take them wherever I go. The task list in Project Align was, interestingly enough, actually made by the project team for the SharePoint team. It's very sweet. It gives you the ability to do indenting, outdenting. So yeah. And finally, when we do talk about collaboration, it does all come down to SharePoint. Project managers have their project schedules, and they do their planning in there. But the reality is the way people like to work very often is within SharePoint sites. And that's just because, that's where all the information is stored centrally in one location with one source of the truth. So what Microsoft has done is to re-enable additional functionality into the project team work sites in SharePoint. So if I go over here back to my simple project plan, what we're seeing is a collaborative project workspace that contains project-related artifacts, and helps teams communicate. Within this site, they can share information, better manage the project pipeline, and more effectively measure the team's ideas throughout the project lifecycle. With these projects, you can utilize a project site template in SharePoint that includes documents, tasks, calendars, all specifically geared to working on projects. So for this particular project, you can see I have a web part that is showing my project summary up over here. It's also going to show me my tasks that are coming up. So, you can see I've got some tasks coming up. Yeah, I have 78 late. I have 83 upcoming. And if I move down just a little bit, you can see I have a news feed over here that will also stream all of the information, about what people are saying about the content, about the project, and so forth. I could go, yeah, and I could say, hi, has anyone got a RAID template for me, please? I just hit enter or post, and that's it. There we go. Somebody can come on next time. They can log on. They can see I've just dropped a note here, and they can give me a response. It does cut down on reply all, CC all in the emails. So yeah, great stuff. I also have a place on the top here to collaborate not just on my project tasks, but also on documents within document libraries. And this comes with all the kind of great SharePoint functionality, such as the ability to add approval workflows or version control to documents, and getting them into the library is really, really easy. So for instance, if I had to go like this, it's as simple as dragging and dropping into a library, and fairly speedy as well. So look at that. I mean, that was just a couple of seconds really. So yeah, really great. I also said I would have a look at something called OneNote. So if we go over here and we click Notebook, and this is one of the kind of newer features. And when I click on the link and it opens up, I can collaborate and make notes and comments about the project in here. I can start setting in my status meeting. And I can take my notes. And I suppose the great thing is, only one person needs to take the notes, that I need to email them around, since this notebook is already attached to the project work site. And actually, this is a web app. Right now I'm accessing it from a web app. But if I needed to, I could also access this notebook directly from my my desktop application. I could go and I could say OneNote 2013. I can open that up. I could open this up on my iPhone or my Android phone. All comes back to the devices again. And the other interesting addition here is something called a site mailbox, which is very interesting. Let's talk about. So over here I have my mailbox, and if you think about it, if I had to click on this is not set up, so I don't think I'm going to be seeing much. Just going to start getting ready for me. So yeah, if you think about it, on any given project, lots of emails tend to fly around, and how do you log all of those emails, and how do you search them? It's next to impossible to do that. So what Microsoft have done is they've taken the SharePoint functionality in a mailbox, and they're enabling that for Project Web App. So, when I create a project, I can have it automatically create a project team mailbox. And as long as that mailbox is blind copied on a email communication, it will log all communication about that project. It's really great from an audit perspective, as it'll give us all the visibility we need across all the information on a project. And then if you look over here, we also have our kind of various deliverables like risks, issues, actions, decisions, and so forth. This is a standard non-configured risk list. Typically, as a consultant, we would come in and we'd align it to your organization's risk processes, and we would advise you in terms of best practice. But over here, I can go and I can input whatever I wanted to. So this risk title is test. I go and I could look for myself or whomever. Go and add this in, and I'll give my risk a probability, a impact. I can, assign it a cost, a description, what's our mitigation plan, trigger description, so forth. I can click save, and then my risk is available here. And if somebody else wanted to come, they could go and they could just click on the title, they could review it. I suppose another great thing about these lists is, they come with a whole plethora of views. You've got all active risks, all closed ones, postponed ones, ones assigned to me, opened by me, owned by me, and I mean the same sort of configuration and functionality is generally available for all of your other kind of project controls. And if they aren't, for instance, with a library which is a little bit vanilla in terms of the kind of metadata it contains, that can very easily be configured. You can kind of set up, document lifecycle workflows within the metadata, or you could set it up as, formal workflow approval. So, really, really kind of powerful stuff. And finally, just the last thing I wanted to touch on here is, say, if we had to go back, you see it finished actually creating my Outlook site there for me. I don't want to go into Project Web App right now. Thank you very much. Right, so what I was saying is, the last thing is search. Microsoft have done something really interesting, and they've enabled search on project sites. So if I had to go and I had to search for something here, so let's say, if I said RAID template, if I search RAID template over here, it would actually goes and it looks in the news feed. It looks in your, your deliverables list, your risk list, your issue list. It goes and looks in your notebook. It looks in your documents. It looks not just in your document titles or the metadata, but actually goes into the Excel spreadsheet or into the Word document or into the PowerPoint, and it'll index that, and it'll say, well, if there's anything that said, if I looked for, RAID list over here, if there's any piece of information within your project site that contains that, it's going to pull it up. Obviously, this is a demo site, so it's got nothing. I mean, it's got my comment that I've created. I don't have any documents with that, but it's pretty great, and it's really snappy. You saw 10 minutes ago, that's when that was created. Nobody's replied to me. Nobody likes my comment. It's fair enough. So with that, I'm actually going to hop back to the presentation now, if that's okay. Okay, so moving on to the architecture, I hope I've managed to provide you with a flavor of what's possible in the 2013 Client and Project Online. In terms of architecture, it's actually very similar to what we had in Project Server 2010, except in the case of Project Online, of course, the entire backend, SQL, SharePoint, Windows, and Project Server are all delivered in Project Online. It's taken care of by Microsoft. The other major change you will see in this diagram is, of course, the multi-browser support. So in the top right hand corner, you'll see we have Project Web App, which is, of course, browser-based, used to access Project Server Online. This is accessible now through Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, even Safari for multiple devices, which is great news. It's really browser agnostic at this point, which is very nice, whereas in the past it was always very kind of specific to using Internet Explorer. As you can see, we also have link integration out of the box. And we have updated Exchange integration available, and what this allows you to do is keep your end user resource information up to date via your Exchange calendar, for instance. So this is a big one. Say for instance I was out of the office and I've put on a out of office reply on my Outlook. What that all of a sudden does is it can donate in the resource pool in Project Server that I'm not available. So if somebody wanted to go and assign me to a task they'll see that Jerome isn't around. It's all about the whole unified PPM. Microsoft has really started getting really tight on their integration. Great. So we're nearing the end of it now. Um, I wanted to speak a bit about some of the benefits of Project Online. And one of the key ones is the subscription service. So not only can you run it anytime, anywhere, but you don't have to worry about the infrastructure required. It's also securely accessible through the internet, and it's really targeted at different stakeholders, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation. Project managers have views, resource managers have views, executives have different views. It's a highly rich solution. You can also give views to, for instance, to contractors, and then you could cut off the access once they are gone. There's core resource management capabilities that will continue to be added to the platform, and that's a huge benefit and can add a huge add-on that will very likely continue to evolve as Microsoft move further and further into this direction. We can also use the team member updates to save our time rather than have a poor project manager run around between different status meetings trying to get updates. They can update their task lists and push those back to the project manager, from their phones, from their desktops, who can just then go and do the approvals rather than do the chasing. And finally, simple professional reports. Reports run out of Microsoft Project on the desktop, reports out of Project Web App, and an infinite amount of custom reports can be created. I always like to say, if you capture the data, then you can report on the data. It's really about agreeing and defining what you want to report on. That's the hard work. So, how do we buy Project Online? Well, if you already have Office 365, one of the things you can do is go and talk to your tenant administrator, and you could just say, spin up an environment for me. Now remember that the environment is going to be blank. It's almost like walking into an empty box. You've got none of the configuration I showed you today. There was all sample configuration, views and reports. I'd recommend working with one of the Microsoft PPM partners, much like pCubed. You could work with me, and we could get it planned and we could set it up correctly for you. You can also work with partners like us to set up a test tenant. So if you want, you can follow up on the email address at the end of this webinar, and we can work with you to set up a test tenant and determine what that approach could look like. Remember, deployment is still required for online, and while technology or the technology requirement may go away, the business requirements for planning and configuration still hold true. So there's no built-in configuration with the application. So that's the end of the presentation. I'd like to leave you with a wonderful quote and maybe some free advice. The quote is from the chief of the Prussian army in the 1800s, and it goes as follows: no plan of operations extend with certainty beyond the first encounter with the enemy's main strength. And I'm sure if there's any project managers listening to this, they'll love that and they'll really get it. Don't kid yourself. No plan survives unless it keeps on changing. And if it keeps on changing, you have to keep on adjusting and tracking it. And Project Online is really going to help you with that. And now for some of the free advice. You can't build an EPM system and think that people will come. It's not just about the actual software. I'd almost suggest that if the software basically works the way that it's promised to on the tin, it merely plays a minor role in the successful enterprise project management implementation. Success with Project Online is more a function of how you as an organization are going to manage the performance of people using the system than it has anything to do with the software. It also depends on how much time and money you invest into change management. There are no shortcuts that you can take to a successful EPM deployment. And that's it, folks. Thanks very much for joining me today. Goodbye.